friends and enemies. So here we go, a little bit late. Apologies for that, but we have had a last-minute substitution. Want to give a big shout out to Boom Dust, all the way from Hollywood, California. Thank you for coming on, Boomer. Love having
What's
you
up,
on
guys?
standby. Yeah, man.
What's
just,
up? Yeah, I'm here anytime. Anytime.
I like your name. It says not Sly Goomba. So I'll have this then as my, and then we can pretend I'm him. And then, so we can go from there.
You can call me Jim the Anvil Neinhart. You know what I mean?
Man.
Come in with the hot tag.
So before we go any further, and just want to state for the people on the audio, I have a little stuffy Goomba. I'm just showing to the camera. So just here he is. And so I got to do the ad reads because that's something that it's has to be done because we have 3 great companies that are sponsoring the CBP. And all 3 of them, number 1, Boom Dust is wearing the shirt, the Easy DNS shirt. He's now running away from the camera. Either way, Easy DNS, it's a great place to register your domain name. I know somebody that may have done one very recently. I don't want to say who or what it was about. But either way, it was seamless, done quick, and it was done with the currency that we love the best, Bitcoin, because Easy DNS accepts Bitcoin for their purchases. So again, like if you're doing a domain name purchase, or even if you want to transfer it over, they're able to help you out. Web hosting, email hosting. So if you want to spin up one, either a website or email hosting, or if you want to migrate either of the 2 over, again, they could do that for you. Protection is always key to them because they love your privacy, which means you love your privacy. There's very few companies like this out there. They've been in this game for decades, since the late 90s. Think about all the companies that have come and gone in this space, but still Easy DNS is standing strong because why? They want to make sure you are number 1 and all your needs are taken care of. Open up an account. If you haven't done so, and use the code CBP Media. If you use CBP Media with the code, 50% will be taken off your initial purchase, which means make your first purchase very, very big. Then you'll have a very big savings as a result. EasyDNS.com. Second, Bull Bitcoin. And the price of Bitcoin, $67,000, according to my blog.
It's cheap, Lynn.
It is cheap considering what we think it is. So it's a good place to buy, but some people may think it's a good time to sell. Right, not financial advice, of course, but selling is also an option with Bull Bitcoin. On chain, you could do that. With Lightning, you could do that. Let me take a look right with my node. What are the fees right now? It's loading up. Oh, it's slow. Anyways, the last time I checked, it was very cheap. So on chain, it's still the way to go. So, but if they do spike, you have the option to then use Lightning. So learn how to use Lightning. It's a good opportunity to do it now. Either way, Bull Bitcoin, let's talk about them. They have other services there aside from simply just buying or selling Bitcoin. One thing you could do with them, you can pay your bills. You have a hydro bill, you have a car payment, whatever the heck you got to do. You want to pay that. You don't want to use your dirty fiat for whatever reason because you have a large stack of Bitcoin that you've been accumulating for years and number go up. Well, Bull Bitcoin, they can facilitate the payments of these bills using your Bitcoin. That's one thing they have. The second thing, which is really cool, you can start spending your Bitcoin in the real world. How? You could buy gift cards through Bull Bitcoin. With that, you're using your Bitcoin and spending that indirectly in the real world. Like you go to Home Depot or Starbucks or wherever, lots of different options. So check them out. Open up an account if you haven't done so using our promo code. You see it's below, or just go to iwantbitcoin.ca. $21 will be added to your account once you fund your account and give the proper information. Third, we have Decentral Tech. And man, oh man, we have the BitAxes coming out for the CBP branded BitAxe. Boomer, you ordered one, right?
I did indeed.
Very good. So there's 75 in existence. So if you haven't already ordered it, order it soon because once they're done, they're done. But either way, if you don't have an opportunity to buy that, there's lots of other hardware you could buy. You could buy an S19, S21, S9. You could get the space heaters. Winter is coming. It's getting colder. People want to heat their homes using Bitcoin. Lots of different options. You could use any of the number of different mining equipment I've just mentioned. Check them out. If you want anything to do with Bitcoin for mining, they are the people that you want to talk to because they know this business inside and out. They'll provide you good service. BitAxes, if you want one, they're a great place to go. Check them out. Decentral.tech, D-central.tech. Actually, that's the correct. D-central.tech is their website. Check them out and tell them that we referred you to them. So there you go. Boomer.
Man, before we get started, like you guys have kick-ass sponsors. Like they're not
Yeah,
just they're not just like providing good quality services for Bitcoiners, but they're also like really good guys. Like
they are.
you can't beat those three. Like you can I've been lucky enough to break bread with those guys a little bit over the past few years, and those are like really good people that work at those three companies. And I ordered a CBP BitAxe, but it's not here yet. They're on back order. But as you can see, like I'm rocking
I was
like
gonna
shirt
say
that Mark gave me.
in the
I'm wearing
hat.
a hat that like I think Pablo or Guillaume gave me. Like
Hey, no
from
name, no names.
no
Let's
names.
we'll erase that from the. It's too late. It's live. No. Yeah, they're good guys over at Bull Bitcoin. EasyDNS too. Like Mark and team are fantastic. So yeah, thank you for being a walking billboard for the CBP. This is that's awesome. We just got to get some
100%.
paraphernalia over you for decentral tech and go from there. I don't know, man. Let's talk a few things here. We'll try to dance around this subject as best as possible. Because we don't want to get our bank accounts frozen just in case. But not sure if you've heard in Canada, and we'll talk a little bit of politics here. So for people that are outside of Canada, my apologies, but it's a good time to talk about it. Justin Trudeau has come back from his overseas trip. And while he was away, there have been a number of MPs allegedly, in a number of around 20 to 30, have signed a pact that they want to see him step down. And on top of that, one MP from, gosh, I'm going to say New Brunswick, I forget his name. He came out publicly. I'm not sure if you saw this yesterday on CBC, and he said publicly, this guy's a longtime liberal, elected liberal too. He's not just a has-been. He's still a current guy there. He said he wants to see Trudeau go. It's incredible to see that there's this reaction, both behind the scenes, but now also at the forefront. I'm not sure if there's any way Trudeau could still stay in power, given the fact you have all this infighting. You have the Bloc Québécois giving them an October 30th deadline to increase the old age security, I think it is, by 10% is the number that comes to my head. I could be wrong. And that's going to be a very costly addition to the budget. So they're cautiously trying to move ahead, but it looks like that's not going to be possible if they want to be fiscally responsible, because you can't add, $2, $3, $4 billion onto the tab and say, we're being fiscally responsible. It's hard to do. So not sure if you're following this at all, but I find this to be rather fascinating, and it's quite possible there could be a new prime minister in the not too distant future. Thoughts on that?
Maybe. I'm not one to really follow politics that much, but
Okay.
I know that 9 years. He's been in power 10 years now.
Yeah, since 2015, so 9 years almost to the day.
That's a long time for anyone, right? In any developed democracy, someone to be a leader of a major party for almost a decade, usually around that time, you would expect a little bit of change, right?
There's a shelf life. There's a shelf in Canada, especially for people who are unaware. I know in the United States you have a 2-term limit. In Canada, you could have unlimited. Theoretically, you could go in for as many periods, as many times as possible. But there is fatigue. It's happened in the past. Chrétien, there was fatigue with him. Harper, there was fatigue with him. Mulroney, there was fatigue with him. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, there was fatigue with him. So it seems to be 3 terms ish in a row, maybe 4, depending if it's minorities, around 10-year mark. That seems to be the shelf life of a prime minister. So,
and there is a lot of change going on in the world right now.
Yeah,
like we are in the middle of change. So here we are as Canadians, like we're seeing all this political change everywhere else, and I think it's only natural that we would kind of want that too, right?
Yeah, it's what happens. It swings one way and then it swings the other, and then back and forth. And for people that are thinking that this might be the end of the Liberal Party or whatever, no, there's only 2 parties in Canada that's ever governed. It's either going to be the Liberals or whatever rendition of the Conservative Party. There's been no other parties that ever led Canada. So it's a matter of time before the current group of people get voted out for the next group and then back to the other group. So it's going to be swinging back and forth. So there will be the Conservatives look like they're going to be forming government next election unless things drastically change. But whenever they do form government, they have the 5 to 10 year window, and then it's probably going to go back to the Liberals, right? Like historically, it's been like that. I can't see why this is going to change. Yeah,
And no
which or
different in the United States or in England or in France or anywhere else, right? Like that's kind of, I think Japan is probably the one exception in the Western world where the
it,
ruling party there has been in power a pretty long time.
oh really?
Yeah, if I'm
So
not mistaken.
the gentleman that was assassinated, the previous prime minister, he was part of the governing party that's still there.
Yeah, did he not resign and then his successor kind of took over?
I
All of a
think
sudden, this is the
so.
Japanese political podcast.
Hey, well, we'll do Singapore next. The Abenomics,
Singapore.
right? Is that what it was called?
Yeah,
Abenomics,
yeah.
something like that. I can't pronounce his name. Apologies, my Japanese is terrible. But yeah, but I don't know. I'm just looking at the way politics is going, and you're right. It's just it's the end of looks like of this cycle, and CBP. Yeah, Ben is. I met Ben. A very nice guy. I met
I
him
met
a
Ben a
couple weeks
couple of
ago.
times. Ben's awesome.
Yeah, he certainly is, and he's not only a Bitcoiner, but he understands hard assets. My Japanese should be better. My Japanese is terrible. I agree. Konnichiwa. I should watch more Mr.
Sly Goomba is the Japan expert, and he's not here, so
He
we just
is?
have to make do. No, I don't think so.
Oh,
Maybe.
he would have been our Mr. Fuji. We
There you
lost
go.
him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, here's a
Who
good
did Mr.
story.
Fuji, the Barbarians?
What
Who
did
did
he?
Mr. Fuji manage a tag team?
A ton of them, like Barbarian and Ming. Did he
Yeah.
know? I don't know. I can't remember, but a ton of teams. But Yokozuna was one I remember mostly. But yeah, not sure if you saw this. There's a CBC article. I know you live in La Belle Provence, and it's talking about Quebec malls scrapping family doctors for healthy patients. Have you seen this article
I
floating
did.
around?
I did. I did. It's come up in
So,
conversation a couple of times in my life.
do you mind giving like your idea about this, because this seems pretty interesting at the very least, considering that everybody's paying into the system, and if they're trying to steer away healthy individuals from getting a family doctor, it doesn't seem like it's the best path forward. But maybe their services are stretched to limits, and this might be the only way to make do. Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, a few personal thoughts I have. Like, I don't have a family doctor. I've been living in Quebec now quite a few years, and I've been on a list to get a family doctor, and I don't have one. And I'm one of these healthy people. That being said, the few times that I've needed to see a doctor when I've been in Quebec, it hasn't been a problem. Like I've been able to use like the app to make an appointment and see one, and it's been a good experience. But I realize that I'm not that's kind of the exception, I think, from people talking, that it's actually quite hard, just like everywhere else, to kind of see a doctor. But yeah, demolition, yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. And
Yeah,
also Powers
totally
of
forgot.
Pain. Remember they did the switch?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a sign of the times, really, when you start seeing that healthy people can't get a family doctor. It really kind of shows that we're kind of sick care and not health care, right? So if you really wanted a healthy populace, I think you would kind of be focusing on the healthy people. But we're at the point now where it's stretched so thin that there are so few doctors for so many people, and there's a lot of sick people. And it's an older province. Quebec is
Yes.
one of the older provinces. So there's more people relying on these services. So that kind of leaves younger, healthy people kind of out in the cold.
So I don't know exactly the makeup in terms of the budget in Quebec, how much the healthcare system takes up, but I'm assuming it's the same as Ontario. And I think, but in Ontario, between health and education, that's half the provincial budget. So I would assume Quebec is kind of around the same boat.
Probably, maybe a little bit higher on health, just
Okay.
the demographics, but yeah.
Okay. So let's use that as the guiding light here, that they're spending a lot on just their overall budget on health. And now you have more people have come in either through temporary foreign workers or claiming asylum, or just even immigrating through the old fashioned way of just coming in through as a skilled worker or being sponsored as a family member. The population of Quebec has grown quite a bit.
Yep.
And the services the amount of availability of services is obviously having a difficult time to meet the demand. So what's the option moving forward? Because you're a Quebec resident, what would you do to try to rectify this problem, if there is a way to fix it?
I think we need more doctors, right? So we should incentivize doctors to come here. I don't know what that means. Does that mean do we pay them more, or do we give them, do we make it a little bit easier for foreign doctors to with the transfer their certifications and their degrees? I'm not sure. but we definitely need more doctors. It's kind of like housing, right? You can worry about the supply or the demand. So if you're increasing the amount of people, you're increasing the demand for doctors. Well, you need to increase the supply of doctors. And one way to do that would be to incentivize people from other countries to come and move here. In Quebec, it's hard because there's not that many French-speaking countries. There's a handful of them, right? So if you go by, you need to speak French to be a doctor in Quebec, which makes sense
Mandatory.
unless you're living in some of the very anglophone neighborhoods, and there's not that many of them in Quebec. There's a handful. You have to speak French. So it's kind of slim pickings. There's not a whole lot of countries to choose from. What we could be doing is doing a better job training doctors, or maybe we could be getting nurses to do some of the jobs that doctors can do. Like maybe if you just have a cold and you need to go in there and get a prescription for some cold medication, well, maybe, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not a healthcare professional, but maybe you don't need a doctor for that. Maybe a nurse practitioner would be good enough. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but Quebec isn't the only province that's going through this. We just might be going through it the worst.
So in Italy, because I read the news over there, I'll tell you what's going on, how they're tackling the issue is they've started allowing students to enter medical school without having to pass a particular test. So there's no entry exam.
Well, that's dangerous when you start going down that road, for sure.
After a few years, once they graduate through the system, set up their practice, if they don't have the basic need, like the competency required to provide medical attention, and it's not something that you're like framing a house and that's through the whole process. Oh, this doesn't make any sense. Let's take a few pieces out and fix it. You're dealing with a person. There's no coming back. You screw up. That person could potentially be impacted for the rest of their lives. Plus, their faith in the system is going to be totally lost, and also the people that are surrounding them is going to. It's brutal. But that's what's being done over there. I hope we don't follow that same path over here to try to open up doors to that extent, just because they have to try to make it to fill a gap.
And even when you do see a doctor nowadays, you're not seeing them for a long time. You're only getting a few minutes with them, right? It's tough. So how do you do it? How do you make it better? We need more doctors, and incentives rule the day, right? So maybe we should.
Yeah, Bitcoin Blitz says here that they're not doctors; they're pharma pushers, and that, I mean, there is something to say about that because there's incentive to do that. As
sick care, it's sick care. It's not healthcare, right? It's
the problem is it's not going to get any better, and this is something that's really going to impact productivity, and also it's going to be even more costly for the province and Canada as a whole.
Of course.
So it's a you know what, the more I read about this and see about this, and I'm just wondering, man, we're still trending in the wrong direction. And I say accelerate for shits and giggles at times, but people are going to be impacted pretty heavily as a result.
For sure. But what we can do as individuals is try to be as healthy as possible so that you're not relying on the system, right? So that means fixing up your diet, getting some rest, getting enough sunshine, enough sleep, all these things. And that's all you can do. But I mean, there's some times where, you fall, you break your arm.
Yeah.
Like you need to go to the hospital, right? Like it's going to happen. And especially, people that have paid into the system their entire lives, friend of the show, Mike Campbell, like he talks about it on his show about how, he's an older guy and he's been paying into the system his entire life out in BC, and he has an accident and he breaks his arm and he's in the emergency room for 12, 14 hours trying to see a doctor.
And that's that's a real life example because he suffered some injury, right? That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. He fell, he broke his arm of some.
Yeah. I didn't want to, just in case. Yeah. Yeah. It's pathetic, but you know what? They're going through an election right now, and it looks like the people over there are going to be turfing the party that's currently in.
Well, I mean, if you really think that voting is going to fix everything, I don't know. Could voting fix things, like one party over the other party here and there? Like, yeah, maybe it's change, but I don't know. I don't know if we're.
Vote harder.
Voting is vote harder. Yeah, right.
But still, I don't know. Like for me, I truly enjoy following Canadian politics, and to a lesser extent, American politics. I've been watching it for so long time. I understand there may be, I mean, the people like you're talking about, just voting doesn't really change much in the end, it seems. But for whatever reason, I like to
Well,
follow
it
it.
does make sense because you do like wrestling. So like
Yeah, for sure.
WWE and politics, there's a lot in common.
They both scripted, though. I would say one is not and one is.
Well, I don't know.
But it's real life.
I don't know which one's which.
We're not going to go there. Bank of Canada, I'm not sure if you've been following this, but they might cut rates as much as 100 basis points by the end of the year. Did you hear about this?
Yeah. There's some people talking about 75 basis points coming up at the next meeting. Yeah.
And that's this month in October.
Yeah.
So that's going to be in a massive drop if they decide to do it.
Yeah.
What's your prediction? I'm going to put you in a spot. If you had to place your money on something, what do you think they're going to be doing this month?
Okay, for the people listening, a little bit of back information. Canadian inflation numbers came out this week, and they came in at 1.6%, which is lower than the banks of Canada's target rate of 2%. So that does give them potentially a little bit of room to lower rates. But if you kind of dig into the numbers a little bit, you see that it's not great. Like it's housing is still expensive.
Food is outpacing inflation.
Is still expensive. If I had to bet,
sorry, go ahead.
If I had to bet, you're putting me on the spot and saying a prediction. I would say 50 basis points at the next meeting, and then maybe another 25 later on in the year if those inflation numbers come in kind of as they're coming in. But manufacturing numbers came out today, and they were also a little bit weak. Wholesale came out yesterday. Wholesale numbers came out yesterday. They weren't very strong either. Yeah, there's a lot of signs out there that things are not going great. So maybe a 50 basis points cut, and then another 25 to maybe 50 at the end of the year. I think that would be the base case for me. But 50 at the next one for sure. I think
that would give an injection to the economy because liquidity would be easier, or capital would be easier to get through borrowing, and so there's potential this could spur. Don't want to say recovery, but just elevating everything as a whole. As for what cost, it is up for debate. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it, but we know the answer.
I've been in the camp that I think inflation is coming back. I've been on that bandwagon. I've kind of said that, like, I actually was kind of surprised that central banks were able to keep rates as high as they did for as long as they did. I'm shocked. But I think now that we're going into a rate cutting cycle now, I'm not sure that we're not going to see inflation kick back up, because inflation it never seems to go away in just one burst. We tend to have secondary pulses of inflation. Like, and Joey talked about it really well on Monday, I thought, when he was trying to explain inflation and interest rates as, cars, and you're kind of just bouncing from one side to the other when you're going really fast. And that's kind of what monetary policy kind of is right now. So I wouldn't be shocked to see a burst in 2025 of more inflation.
Wow, I didn't realize that soon, because it is the levers they're pulling from the central banks. It's always a delayed effect because they're reacting to data that for the previous 12 months or longer created whatever environment they're in. And then so they're just trying to change it. It's a slow moving ship. So
and it takes time. It takes time. When you cut or raise rates, it takes time for the effects of those rate cuts or those rate increases to be felt, right?
So even Ryan's thinking, he's saying in the chat, sorry, that you think 50, then 25, then 50. So he's saying 125 basis points before the end of the year. And it would signal things are quite bad for the Canadian economy. But it's also another way to look at it is they're trying to get to the point where they were before 2020. So rates were very low before 2020. Yep. So maybe there's an appetite to get back to that point and maybe have the economy almost reset itself to where it was. But now we have the added impact of prices of everything being much higher because of the last 4 years and their decisions. So
real estate too. I
whatever.
don't really follow real estate that much. Are you've but I did see a couple of things that real estate listings in Toronto are up. Is that right?
The condo market last I saw, and I thought I saw something today, is we're back down to the prices of January 2021. So prices have dropped steadily for the condo market over here. I don't know. It seemed like, I mean, just anecdotally through my neighborhood, it seems like for sale signs are staying up far longer than they were in previous years. But they've already lowered rates quite a few times, 2 or 3 times, I think the Bank of Canada did. And with more to come, it's just going to spur more buyers. And as we get into springtime, which gets to be the heavy buying season or selling season, depending how you look at it, I think you're going to see a lot of inventory move come that time, because the environment's going to be great. People are going to be wanting to move at springtime. So there's going to be a lot of real estate that's going to be exchanging hands early next year, I think, for better or for worse. So, and just I saw today there was an article by CTV News talking about food prices being much higher than inflation, and in fact, like frozen or fresh beef is up 9.2% year over year.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Edible fats and oils 7.8%, eggs 5%, fresh vegetables 4.4%, and it goes down from there. Seafood down 4.9%. For whatever reason, seafood has been deflationary environment. Must be a boom for
seasonal effects and stuff like that.
I guess
much into it, but
so like I mean, there's a snippet of just one segment of what we're buying, food. It went up quite a bit.
The food professor had a really good tweet last night. I tagged Joey, but I didn't tag you on it.
I wouldn't want to chat with. He's a no.
Yeah, I know you don't like him, but whatever. I'm a fan, and I know Joey. I don't know. Maybe Joey is neutral, but and the food professor talked about how it's a little bit concerning that a lot of these foods that are seemingly still above inflation are foods that we make here. That's concerning.
So what's going to happen with that? Will it eventually come down because all the costs to grow, slaughter, or whatever, and then ship it out to the consumer, won't those eventually come down if everything else remains kind of low in a lower inflationary environment, or do you think it's going to stay very high?
There's a lot of factors, right? And then that also the Canadian dollar as well, right? So as the Canadian dollar goes down, the things that we make here becomes more attractive in other places. So let's just say, and generally speaking, this is the case, when interest rates go down, so does the currency. So if we cut interest rates more aggressively than the US, then the Canadian dollar will devalue against the US dollar. Mm-hmm. And that will make the food that we produce here a little bit more attractive for US consumers, right? So that would increase demand for Canadian food. So that's not a great sign if you're a Canadian that's trying to buy food here, right? So that would increase competition, right? But it also is it's not a bad sign if you're a food producer. Like if you're a farmer, then that raises your income, right?
Are they doing for Alberta beef? Is there some sort of stoppage of having that go over to the States? I know there's always something that sometimes they're allowing it to go there.
I'm not up to date on that stuff. In a previous life, I kind of was like that was something I really follow closely, but I don't do that anymore.
No, these days you're probably following the World Liberty Financial, right? Like you're neck deep in that shit, right?
Oh my god! Oh yeah. Like don't shitcoin, ladies and gentlemen. Like,
of course. Well, apparently a lot of people aren't. From what I gather, only 4% of the total float has been sold so far, which is much lower than they thought. From what I gather, 75% of the sales of all these shitcoins, these World Liberty tokens, what the fuck it's called, is going to be going to Trump and his team. Like, talk about pre-mined and then taking advantage of it. Like, what a fucking joke. But the market, they're speaking, only 4% sold. That's really good.
That's a good sign. It's a good sign. Yeah. I saw Max Kaiser tweet about this a couple hours ago. Just like smiley face emojis and just laughing about how, it was a disaster. Hopefully Trump learns. I don't know. I don't know if it's Trump or his team or whoever.
Right.
Like, hope whoever is involved in this, hopefully it's they see that this thing is a colossal failure. Whatever headway they made in the Bitcoin community with, certain Bitcoiners, certain like relatively prominent Bitcoiners coming up and stepping up for Trump. Hopefully they're pushing back a little bit and saying, look, we didn't sign up for this. Like this is not what we want. So maybe it'll be a sign. I mean, look, you listen to a Bitcoin podcast, you're probably a Bitcoiner.
You'd be
Shitcoining is,
surprised.
yeah.
You'd be fucking surprised.
But
People listen and they're into everything for whatever. I mean, follow.
it's definitely the charm of the hosts, right? Like you guys, it's the banter and the charm. But shitcoining is a relatively natural part of the Bitcoin journey, right? Like most people that are into Bitcoin, they at some point they dabble into these shitcoins, and most of them get burnt, and they take a step back and they realize that, oh well, that was wrong. It's a learning experience for a lot of people. Now, luckily, I kind of avoided that stage of my Bitcoin journey. Like I wasn't much of a shitcoiner. Like admittedly, I think I bought like $200 worth of Ethereum and then sold it at a loss. So and it wasn't that much of a loss. I still am carrying on that law, my capital gains law for CRA. So if CRA is listening, like they know that like I got a $40 tax loss that I claimed. So I'm looking to cash that in. But that was it for me in my shitcoin, right? So but for most of us, and this is kind of normal. You kind of think that you can fast track your Bitcoin journey by dipping into these altcoins, and time again, people get burnt.
The problem is people look at it and unit bias comes into play. And right away they look at like, this is only 30 cents a token or where the fuck it is. If it only goes to $1, I'll be able to make a killing. But no,
I didn't even look at this Trump token, like what the units were. I have no idea.
I have no clue. I don't even give it a shit, to be perfectly honest. But it's a DeFi thing too, right? So there's going to be some generating of new tokens or maybe existing tokens. You get I don't know if it's staked or I don't know what the fuck the thing is. Either way, the fact
when are people going to learn, Len? When are people going to learn?
They have to get burned.
They have to get burnt.
Right. Like they come into this, they look at Bitcoin, and today 67,000 still in my block clock. It doesn't change, a stupid thing. I'm not saying that it's a stupid thing. The price is not changing, the stupid price. They're looking at that and saying it's damn expensive, right? The people that made bank got in years ago. It's now that ship has sailed. There's no reason for me to get in now. And they think, what's going to be the next big one that's going to make, like Ethereum? Probably not, because it's pretty mature. It's got a large market cap. They keep going down the list to try to find the next one. And that's what happens. They look, oh, this thing, if it just goes up 10x or 3x or whatever, and it's so cheap, it probably can. There's no fucking case use for this thing. And I can't believe I'm fucking even saying this word, but tokenomics. I can't believe I'm fucking saying it. There is none. Where does the supply come from? What is the maximum supply? Could you verify anything? There's nothing good out of this. And you got a centralized body that's dealing with this thing. And theoretically, they could get Wells noticed by the SEC. Same shit cannot happen with Bitcoin.
You are the yield.
Right.
You are the yield. You are the exit liquidity.
Exactly that. And people don't fucking realize it. And time and time again, people come into this space, fucking look at that and say, I'm going to make big on there. And they get fucking wrecked in the process. And you know what? If that happened, if that's the price you have to pay to finally realize that Bitcoin is your savior, all the more power to you. But hopefully people learn from others. That's something I've been doing. I've been trying to do a lot, is I'm looking for other people's mistakes. And I'm trying to learn from that, because that way it's going to be less costly to me. I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes, but I'm trying to learn from others as much as possible. And
every cycle, every Bitcoin cycle has its version of this. Right. Yeah. And it always changes. And now that the ordinal stuff seems to be behind us now, I don't know, it might come back somehow. But the shitcoin stuff, the ICO stuff is over. The NFT stuff, that seems to be almost over. but they're going to keep, these shitcoins are going to keep popping up. They're just going to be different every time. They're a little bit different, and
It's a new scam.
the new scam, and it's, I'm concerned that the next one might be a little bit, might not be as easy to spot. Like I'm concerned about the financialization of Bitcoin. Like I have my concerns that it might be there, like something that's in the stock market.
Unpack that. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned. Like I look. I'm sure you've been reading the Twitter, the posts. You know, plenty of friends of the show are on one side or the other on the MicroStrategy stuff and the ETF stuff.
But that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. I mean, for the most part, maybe in terms of who holds what, or the quantity of tokens or coins are held. But in terms of Bitcoin itself, it changes nothing, right?
It changes nothing. But what I'm saying is every cycle has its own version of this shitcoinery, right? Like the ICOs, the NFTs, all this stuff. What if this cycle's version of that is these publicly traded companies? And I'm not pointing out any one in particular. And again, never give financial advice. This is just, I'm just talking. What if this cycle's version of shitcoining is on Wall Street and is done that way?
It's very possible. One can make an argument. One can make a very strong argument that doing, and I don't want it to like talk about it too much in terms of like this side of the argument, but it is indeed shitcoining, and I've mentioned it many times. So you and I think are on the same side of the fence. So I don't want to we'll be sucking each other's cock on this stuff. Like, really, we have nobody to
That's not what I signed up for when I subbed in for Sly. I did not.
You never know, because there's always a bonus. So, but that's the reality. I said, dealing with TFSAs or any sort of tax account that provides you some sort of tax advantages, it's good, I guess, for now, until it's not. And then whenever it's not, then at that point, what are you going to do? Everybody's going to be trying to get the same capital out of the market, and you don't want to be left in that crowd of people. You want to be long gone at that time. Bitcoin, the beauty of Bitcoin, once you have it and you have it in cold storage, and you're the only one who has access to those keys,
exactly,
nobody else could take it away from you, as long as the network is still is in operation, which should, unless the internet totally dies, which then we're in a bigger problem then. But as long as there's one miner out there building blocks, you can theoretically move your Bitcoin around. So like that's what I look at it. It's a wonderful fundamental that Bitcoin has that all these other things don't, because you're dealing with the TradFi markets, you're dealing with banks, you're dealing with clearing houses, you're dealing with all this bullshit. And there's so many layers, and the more I read into it, how complex it is too when you're dealing with markets. It's not just a simple you just buy it and your brokerage buys it for you. There's a lot to it. Bitcoin, it simplifies the fucking thing significantly. Yeah. It's just fucking send a transaction, broadcast it, and it gets built in the next block, and it's a beautiful thing. And I don't know why we're just trying to go into these more complex things just to get tax advantages. I understand there is an incentive there, and people are drawn to it like a moth to a flame, but eventually it keeps hanging around that flame. You're gonna get fucking burned, man.
But it's a lot of the same things that shitcoiners say, right? Like
yes.
how many? I've read it multiple times in the past couple of weeks about MicroStrategy. People posting, it's like, well, I'm just into MicroStrategy so I can sell it and then buy more Bitcoin. Well, that sounds an awful lot like what people were saying about fill in the blank.
Yes.
Token, fill in the blank, cryptocurrency over the past little while.
Ryan saying the Bitcoin miners and
Bitcoin
TFSA.
miners, yeah. Full disclosure, I got you to thank for this, Len. Not just you and Bob Burnett, because like the series of interviews that you had with Bob are really what changed my mind about holding the Bitcoin miners in my tax exempt accounts. Look, again, what people
Bob's
do with their money. Yeah, Bob's a gem. What people do with their own money, that's on them, as long as they're following the laws and following the rules. And there's obviously nothing illegal about buying a Bitcoin miner and putting it in your TFSA. Like, there's nothing legally wrong with that. I was doing it. I had some of those, but I took some time, and a lot of because of those interviews that you did with Bob, and it really changed my mind about that. And I'm no longer in them.
They don't seem to be a good play in terms of if you want to have a strong correlation to the price of Bitcoin. It's, I don't know, for whatever, I think this year the miners have been on a tear for the most part, but just for the past few years, it seems like there was a decoupling between the price of Bitcoin and the price of the miners. Plus, you always have the counterparty risk of them potentially, the miner, they could issue more shares, so they could dilute. They could do some risky play, like Marathon, for instance. Just this week, I think yesterday, they announced that they took on another $200 million line of credit, and they're collateralizing this with their Bitcoin holdings. Now, as long as the price of Bitcoin goes up, that's a good play. But if it doesn't, if it starts going down, and we've seen Bitcoin go down, a number of different times, what happens to this line of credit they take? Do they have to put something else, or they get wiped off and they have to give up the Bitcoin that they've put up as collateral? Like, I don't know. So like, that's what I'm trying to say. When you're dealing with a Bitcoin miner, you're dealing with the CEO, the board, and you got to hope they make the right decisions, because if they don't, it could impact the valuation of what money you put into their company. And just simply,
and at the end of the day, you're investing in a company that's short Bitcoin. Like, you're investing in a company that
because they're always selling
Bitcoin. Yes, they will sell Bitcoin because they have to sell Bitcoin. That is what they do. I mean, I know now
a lot of
the
them
AI play, there's stuff with the AI stuff now. I mean, it's a whole other, so much to learn, Len. Like, there's so much to learn, like, about all that stuff. And then the difference between all these individual miners, like, if you're going to put your money in there, you have to understand all this stuff, or you could just buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want, that's just our opinions, Ryan. Again, not financial advice, but yeah, I would stay away from the miners. If you have to do TFSA, I can't even, I mean, I'm gonna have to suggest this, but like the ETFs that are directly correlating to the price of Bitcoin minus the management fees, I think that's probably a better play. If you have to do that, you're dealing with less. Yeah, I would say you're dealing with some less risk. The keys itself, you're not holding on to it. Somebody has to hold on to it, but there's no free lunch here. That's the problem.
No, there's no free lunch. And if you're not holding the keys, it's not your Bitcoin.
Yeah. That's why, to go back, if you could take your money out, buy Bitcoin, that's the best course of action. Is, again, if your keys, I set up many a cold card, and I hope people out there, when they set up their cold card or whatever device they used, they did it in a way that the keys never touched the internet. Also, cameras were off. You had no devices, nothing that's recording or could potentially record either the sound or the video. You've done it in a room that's secure. So you're rolling your dice, you're doing all that fucking shit. So that way the keys are secure. So if you do that, nobody can touch your Bitcoin. The only way they could do it is with a $5, or I guess now it's $7.50 with inflation wrench attack. That's the only way they could do it. And even then, you could time lock your stuff so you could protect it. There's lots of different options. So
yeah, dummy wallets in your, and if you don't know that stuff, go push pause and go listen to BTC Sessions, his like 2 or 3 hour long tutorial on how to use a cold card.
It's, my daughter did one. I'm not sure if you saw that tutorial, but it was like a 10 to 15 minutes. She was 10 years old at the time, and she was able to do it. If a 10-year-old can set up a cold card properly, you could do it. And if you don't have the knowledge, you don't know how to do it, reach out to me. We'll go through the process. I don't charge. I'll show you the whole process. It's not that hard. So yeah.
Boomer. Like the average Bitcoiner getting into Bitcoin is much better off spending a couple of hours learning that stuff than trying to figure out micro strategies, stock issuance schedule, and how much net asset value or whatever, right? Like, you're going to spend so much energy and time learning that stuff that I don't know if you're going to get a ton of value. Or you could learn self-custody, and it's not going to be that hard. It's just going to be a couple hours. I think that's a better bang for your buck.
The real uphill battle, though, is people are so wrapped up in traditional finance. It's hard to have them unplugged from that. So they're dealing with a bank who stores their money. And if you're trying to teach them that you could, that we say that be your own bank, it's a foreign concept to have total control of your finances, and the onus is on you to fucking control it. Yeah, not Sly Goomba, laugh out loud. But I do have my Goomba here, so it's we do have one Goomba that's here. So here he is.
But if you're new to Bitcoin, don't despair, right? You just go at your own pace, keep learning, keep studying, and do that stuff. If setting up a cold card is if it's intimidating for you, then watch a couple of videos. Like
Yeah, or reach
Len's
out to me, man.
reach out to Len, reach out to
Yeah.
me. Reach out to anybody from D or anybody else from the cold card team. Like you can do it. Just spend a little bit of time and go at your own pace. Run a node. It's not that hard. Get a bid axe.
Now I'm not sure if you saw, like, holy shit! In the past couple hours, the fees on the Bitcoin on chain, it was 2 hours ago. They fucking started spiking as high as 376 sats per VByte. It's now down to 194. The last block that was mined 28 minutes ago.
I didn't see that. I did see the last time I checked, they were at like 40 or 50, and I was like,
yeah, I saw, but fuck, it's now 4 times, 5 times that. Fuck, what happened? I don't know.
How many
Shitcoiners are
blocks?
back.
How many blocks? How many blocks were that high?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. And one just mined right now, 231 sats. That's
Somebody really wanted to move their Bitcoin, right? And that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin. Like it's a free market. If you really want to, if it's really important for you to be in the next block, then you have to pay more fees. If you're doing it the right way, like what I think is the right way, you're stacking regularly. You're not that worried. You're just sending it to yourself, so you're not that worried, and you can just put your transaction out there, put it at a lower price. You're not that worried if it clears tomorrow or the next day, or so I'm not going to tell you where to put that, but what fees to put it at, but maybe something around 20. If you're moving a couple of 20 sats for VByte, if you're only moving a couple of UTXOs, it's not that bad. It's only going to be a couple of dollars.
Have you consolidated your UTXOs?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Like I keep up with that pretty well. Like I can't say like I'm 100%. I spent a lot.
But if you're the majority of that.
Yeah, the vast majority. I literally have like 2 or 3. What's your ideal UTXO size?
I have a few at 1 million. I have, and then way larger than that. A few way larger than that, and I think that may be not to my advantage in the long run. But I could just simply mix it, I think, before I start doing anything. But yeah, my lowest of the ones that I have consolidated is 1 million UTXO, and I only have a few of those.
That seems like the consensus is like 1 million is kind of so if you're new, if you're new, build up to 1 million sats and put it on one UTXO. And by the time you get to 1 million sats, you probably have enough Bitcoin there that you want to take care of that. So then you get 1 million sats, then get your cold card, one UTXO. I'm a big fan of 1 million is the minimum.
Yes.
But your target should be your stack size divided by 20. So you should never have more than 20 UTXOs.
Are you a Lightning normie?
Like
I've heard that term a bunch of times, so I want to throw it out finally.
I don't run my own Lightning node. Like I don't do that.
It's not easy.
Yeah, I know a couple of guys that do, and every time I talk to them about it, it kind of just goes over my head, so I don't do it. I have been dabbling a little bit with Bull Bitcoin's new wallet, the Liquid wallet, just playing around with it. I played around with a couple of the non-custodial Lightning wallets in the past, and to be honest, I didn't have very good experience with any of them.
Like Phoenix or something, or
yeah, I played around with Phoenix, Breeze, a couple of other ones. The only one I really liked, honestly, was Blue Wallet. I thought Blue Wallet was incredibly good.
And they got rid of it.
And they got rid of it. Yeah. So I played around with a few of them. I didn't like any of them. People talk shit about Wallet of Satoshi, but God damn it, it works. And it's really good. I know, but it works.
Unless you're in the States.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't even
use it.
You can't use it. Wallet of Satoshi is custodial, so it's not yours. But for onboarding people, Wallet of Satoshi is easy. I have been recently keep a very small amount on Wallet of Satoshi just for showing people at the meetups and stuff, like how it works, and just very, very light. But I've been putting all my Lightning stuff actually on Liquid now with Bull Bitcoin's app.
Not your keys, not your coin.
And on Bull Bitcoin on the Liquid, it is your keys. So it is you do hold the keys. Yeah, I know. Liquid.
It's an IOU. You're giving the arrangement is you give your Bitcoin, they give you the equivalent in liquid Bitcoin, and your Bitcoin is then held with the Federation.
Yeah.
Or I think it's a federation, but the federation is the one that manages it, I guess, in some way, shape, or form. So the Bitcoin no longer is yours, and you have to trade that IOU back for your Bitcoin. To date, there has been no rug pulling, but if you are a disciple of the not your keys, not your coin, if it ain't Bitcoin, it ain't Bitcoin.
I'm of the mind that never have more on your liquid or your Lightning wallet in dollars than you would have in your own wallet, you know, like your fiat wallet. Like if you're okay with carrying around $20 bills in your wallet when you go to work or whatever in your back pocket, and that's your limit, $100 is your limit, then your goal on your Lightning wallet should never be to have more than $100 worth of Bitcoin on your Lightning wallet.
And the only reason I have X amount of my wallet is in case my card, for whatever reason, is not usable when I fill up my car, and I pay with cash at that point. And this has happened. My card, for whatever reason, has been compromised. So I don't want to sit there and wait for my wife to come pay. So I just rather have enough cash to fill my car. That's it. that's what my rule of thumb, because it's the only thing I need cash for in a pinch. Everything else, I don't give a fuck.
Then that should probably tell you how much you should have on your Lightning wallet.
Yeah.
Right around that amount. Now, if you're holding your own, if you're running your own Lightning node, then I would say you can have a little bit more on your Lightning wallet. But if you're using Wallet of Satoshi or you're using one of these apps, never hold more on Lightning than you would hold in your wallet.
Yeah, agreed. Boomer, we're up 51 minutes. I think that's a good enough time to call her quits, because my wash is going to be finished and I want to start doing the rest of my laundry before the over here in Ontario, 7 p.m. is when the cheap electricity rates kick in. So I'm not sure if the same applies in Quebec. So all the big items, the big heavy duty items we do here at our house, we try to do it after 7 p.m. to take advantage of the cheap rates. That way it could stack sats. So
speaking of cheap rates, have you started to turn on the miners to keep the place warm yet?
I will no, because mining at home is not good for me. Others could do it because I don't want CRA coming knocking on my door saying, "Hey, you're mining Bitcoin." No. I will set up other people's miners, but I'm not mining here. That is wrong, but you should do it. Read between the lines.
Unless you're buying it from Decentral. You're buying. That's perfectly okay.
Then join a pool, and then those pools, because there's so low probability of winning if you're using a bidax. You're not using that in a pool where you're going to be getting paid like on a daily basis, like a la Brains or an Ocean or whatever. You're trying to go for the big enchilada and get one big block and share it amongst the pool. But anyways, Boomer, thanks for coming on. Where can people find you if they want to reach it? Because you've been a gem.
Monday nights in the chat. I'm always there. Wednesdays, I'm probably like 50-50 on Wednesdays. It's hard.
Oh, why aren't you doing your thing today? It's Wednesdays, don't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Ottawa Bitcoin Meetup. You can find that. Search on meetup.com or Google or whatever. We usually do it on Wednesdays, but we don't do them every Wednesday. So that's why I'm here. I'm able to be here today. And sometimes I go to the Montreal meetups as well. Like I live in Ottawa, so like I drive up for the Montreal meetups, and they're often on Wednesdays or Thursdays. So that's why I don't do it. So check me out over there. I'm on Twitter too, but not for long, maybe.
And you'll be back on the show next month-ish. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess I'm allowed to say that. I don't know.
Yeah, so I'll announce that, because Joey, he's said it. His wife is giving birth soon. The specific date obviously is unknown right now, but she's 8th month-ish. So when she does give birth, obviously Joey's gonna have no time for the show to come on and do this research and all that shit. First child is, for everybody that's been a parent understands what I'm saying. So we have arranged for 3 guest hosts, one in each particular 3 consecutive weeks. That should give Joey enough time to recuperate. Boomer is one of the guest hosts. The other 2 I don't want to say just yet, but they'll be fun. But Boomer, thanks.
And I won't be able to make it on the 28th. And if you're in Ottawa on the 28th, check us out. We're we're doing a BitDevs type of meetup. Oh. So a Lightning eCashew developer is coming in, and he's done some work in Madeira. He's coming into Ottawa to give a presentation of the stuff.
That's a Thursday.
No, it's the 28th. It's a Monday.
That's 20th of October.
October. Yeah.
Okay. That's just
That's
saying
the only Monday that I won't be available because like I'll be at that meetup. So if you're in the Ottawa area, you're interested in Lightning development, you're just interested in Bitcoin, reach out the Capital Bitcoiners on Twitter and get information about that meetup coming up.
Check it out. Boomer, appreciate you coming on such short notice. This has been awesome, and you'll be back again very soon. And for everybody listening and watching, appreciate you listening and watching. We'll be back at this on Monday. And until then, take care and don't be a cuck.